Was it worth spending thousands of hours in front of my PC to learn 3 different engines just to create a handful of games with no earnings because all of them are free? The short answer is no, and the long answer is not yet, so hear me out. The whole story started back in 2018 when my interest in creative work got ignited after reading this book. I wanted to create my own fictional world for other people to enjoy, so I started writing my own story. But there was a problem. Not many people nowadays seem to read books. At least that's what concerned me while sitting in computer science class with the topic of game development. I immediately thought, why shouldn't I turn a story into a game? And with that, the tutorial watching began. For the first 3 months I chose Godot because they said it's beginner friendly. I still managed to fuck up a Pong clone, but who cares? Once I understood the programming language GDScript, I was able to give my pixel art RPG a go. It had some nice features, but since the documentation and tutorials about Godot were limited back then, I got stuck with game-breaking bugs and decided to switch to Unity. With the help of our legend Brekkies, I learned a lot. Not only about Unity, but over game development in general. For example, the importance of good art, which I was definitely not known for. Well, I'm not known for anything to be honest, but anyways. I wanted to learn how to make games without modeling or drawing stuff, which is why I started participating in game jams. I teamed up with the artist Diego, and from game jam to game jam we communicated more and more and created some fun, small games. I even challenged myself to create a working Pong clone in 1 week to see if I improved, and I actually did. With a bit too much self-confidence, I bought some assets to finally create my dream RPG in 3D. I even got a lot of help from one of my earliest subscribers, Alkis, but you might have guessed it. Developing a RPG after 1 year of creating games is impossible, at least with my poor planning back then. So I buried the project in August 2020. Just 3 months later, my new project was born. Me and a friend of mine wanted to create The Dog, a multiplayer horror game, and while we believed in the concept of the game, the development process was hell. One time I raged so hard that my friend was actually afraid to talk to me over Discord, which indicated that something went completely wrong. Today the rage is just a meme among my friends, but back then it was quite a low point. I was simply exhausted by developing and trying to grow a YouTube channel, so I decided to postpone the project. 2 weeks after that my GPU died anyways, which led to a game dev break of 7 months. It was November 2021 when I returned to game development with the plan of finishing The Dog. I opened the project and was completely overwhelmed by my clean code, and with no clue where to continue, I ended up quitting another project. But the next idea was already in my head. Instead of doing nothing creative, I used the 7 months break to finish the novel I talked about in the beginning of the video. My own fictional world was more or less completed, which gave me a pretty solid foundation for the story-driven RPG I dreamed about since November 2019. And this time I had an idea that actually seemed manageable with the stuff I learned until then. My little brother played a ton of LEGO The Hobbit with me, as I remembered how much I loved the game growing up, and how much I still enjoy the concept of the game. And that's how I ended up developing a local multiplayer RPG in 2 different engines. First I spent some weeks implementing the basics in Unity, but then this video popped up. Some points were already line dev approved, some weren't, so I said good and tried out Unreal myself. That engine switch led to the most interesting part of my game dev journey so far, but just to make clear, I don't want to start another fight about which engine is the best, because as he said, in the end it really is just personal preference. Anyways, with my general knowledge about game development, I was able to learn a lot in a decent amount of time, so the progress I made was awesome, and the support I got was insane. After 2 months, I was able to publish this Attack on Titan fan game in 2 weeks, and with just 4 videos, I got more views, subs and watch time than during my first 2 years of game development. I finally felt like the time I spent in front of my PC was indeed worth it. Not only because I did what I liked, but also because I could entertain others with the stuff I do. You know, I've always been that guy in class you either love or hate because I value a good laugh over writing good grades. Yes, I had some issues with that mentality, and sorry if I bothered anybody, but in the end I feel like positivity is one of the best character traits to have, especially if you hear so much bad stuff in the news or on social media. Enough moral stuff, because we have to talk about the biggest mistake I did, postponing my RPG for Project Mind. The idea behind that project was to go through every aspect of releasing a game before publishing my RPG. But poor planning led to feature creep, which turned the project into something bigger than the initial RPG and made both projects a fine addition to my collection of unfinished games. And if wasting 1 year on a project I never wanted to create in the first place wasn't bad enough, it completely destroyed the growth of my YouTube channel as well. In November 2022, my 4th year of game development began, and I still hadn't learned the most important part of game development: preparation. So I decided to change that. First, I planned out a small multiplayer game that I could publish in a month to go through every aspect of releasing a game. And it worked out. I learned a lot about publishing games, and yes, money was spent, but I recently added a fun Christmas mode to the game, and the video does quite well, so for me, it was definitely worth it. Next, I planned out my first good video game, and even though it went through some restructuring, it's my first manageable and entertaining project. It might be published next summer, so wishlist the game or check out my devlogs if that sounds interesting to you. My last achievement in the 4 years of game development is this video. The points I mentioned seem to help quite a few of you, which is pretty awesome to see. And this leads back to the question, was it worth doing all of this? Actually, yes. All the stuff I learned and the few people I met outweighed the frustrating parts of game development, but here is the catch. I turned 20 last week, which means that in November 2024 I'll do game development for a quarter of my life, which sounds pretty weird and will either be the beginning of a bigger creative career or the end of it, since I decided to use 1 more year to see whether I can make it work or not in terms of earning money. At the moment it's just a hobby while studying to become a teacher, so spending the time and money was basically for fun. It was worth it, but since I have the crazy dream about a van and a solar powered PC, I'd like to make some money with it. A remote job would help a lot to fulfill this dream, but that's a topic for a different video. However, if that journey sounds interesting to you, consider supporting me on Patreon or by watching my other videos. But not too many, because time is our most valuable good, and with that wisdom I thank all of you for the support and wish you best of luck on your own journey. Have a good one.